So we are here at SaaStock Dublin 2023. We're going to be having a walk around today, see if we can speak to as many people from the SaaS industry as possible. If you do see us, if you see the Selligence t-shirt, or you see Lewis behind the camera, please come and say hello. I promise not to ask any difficult questions, but I think let's go and try and find some people to speak to. Well, we're on the Salesloft stand here with Jack. You may recognise him from an episode of the podcast or his own podcast, no big deal, little plug there for him. Get him in there, yeah, lovely sticker. But we are going to be asking him about his top tips for reps at events just like these. But for those who don't know who Jack is, one, you've just hurt his ego. But two, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me on and having me on your podcast a couple of months ago. So I'm Jack Neicho. I'm a account executive at this lovely company, Salesloft. I've been here for 4 years, was one of the first reps that went and opened up the London office, selling sales software to salespeople. And I have a sales podcast, so I love sales. My top tips for events, one thing that's really easy, I find, is if you have a booth or even you don't have a booth, try and have something that prospects and customers can win. So it could be really, really easy. Go and buy like £5 or £10 jar of sweets, and to get people's badges or their LinkedIn connection requests, get the prospects and customers to guess how many sweets there are in the jar. Super cheap way and efficient to build a bit of rapport without trying to flog your product to them, and also to scan barcodes. So that's one tip. Secondly, and I'm going to plug our own event tonight. Shameless plug. But this is actually something that I haven't had before. But it's been really, really great this morning at the event to have something to invite customers to in the evening. So even without having to speak about what Salesloft does or anything, you'd be like, hey, what are you doing tonight? Like, we're running this event called Podcasts and Pints in Dublin. It'd be great to see you there. There you go, Jamie, hold it up. Lovely ticket. It's been a really easy way to build rapport and get people, hopefully you can get a good conversation with later in the evening.
Yeah, and I think that we're doing that with in association with other companies as well. So it's just 100 people in a room. It's great. And like you said, you're speaking to people at these events. People love free stuff. Yeah. People, they always feel pressured that they've got to find something to do in the evening. So having food, drinks, it's been really, really interesting. And I think you guys have actually given out quite a few tickets. So
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So it should be a good event. But look, thanks for recording with me. We may be back later to ask you another question. But yeah, it's been lovely.
Cool.
Cheers. I'm here with Chris at SaaStock. And if you don't recognise him, you should do, because he makes very, very good content for LinkedIn. Everything to do with sales. He's very good with the green screen. But I'll hand over to Chris to introduce himself quickly.
Hi, I'm Chris. So I'm a content creator at Sales Feed. I do a lot of work with green screen, so it's quite weird being out in public with people, talking to real people. We're here at SaaStock, recording some content, having some fun.
So we were just talking about like what your opinion is on what people should actually be doing at these events, because like you said, we're just here to record. We're hosting an event later just to build a network. But what should people be doing at an event? What should sales reps be doing at an event, or marketers?
Yeah, I suppose there's kind of two parts to that. I mean, I know that booths have their value 100%. I think for me as a seller, I would come to these events often if I was in a booth feeling the pressure of like knowing the cost implications. So I think there's one thing to do that. If you're coming and you're going to be manning a booth, it's important to understand what the real goals are going to be, what you can do and what you can do to really make it a success. But I think the reason that we got talking was because it feels like there is a movement happening around more self-generated content creation, right? So I think in your case and in what I'm doing here as well is being at an event, the cost is your attendance and your expenses in that regard, and then making the most of that. So meeting people, introducing people, talking about interesting topics that people have obviously got opinions about, sharing some of the interesting highlights that we find at these events, and then using that to create what can be a mountain of content for the next few weeks. So significantly lower cost. So I think in answer to your question, if a company wants to leverage the power of events like this, but don't want to front the cost of a 10, 20k,
20, 30k booth,
absolutely bonkers money, and don't want to do that, send your best reps or your best marketers who've got the motivation to speak to people, send them with a mic and a kit, and if you're Tim Davidson, kitchen knife and some fruit, or whatever it might be.
How he's got that through customs, I have absolutely no idea.
Exactly, something catchy, and have some conversations with people, because that human kind of level content I think really resonates on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on most social channels, and you can use it, as I said, for weeks.
100%. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the content that you produce at the show. It's probably going to put us to shame, but it's been great chatting.
Great good.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So we're here with James Ski, CEO and co-founder of Sales Confidence at SaaStock. I will hand over to you just to tell us about the company, what you do, and then we've got a burning question for you. So.
Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the conversation. So as you mentioned, I'm the CEO of Sales Confidence. We're building the world's most valuable B2B sales community, and we help salespeople and sales leaders with their mindset, well-being and performance. So our value proposition is essentially we have a subscription membership to connect sales leaders and salespeople together so they can develop, upskill and grow in their career. And then we also have an events networking business.
Amazing. And we are going to chat later for a bit longer for an actual full episode of the podcast to talk more about that mindset and confidence, because I think it's a massive thing. It's an underlying, like any tactic or channel that you use, mindset supersedes that. But talking about channels, in your opinion, what is the best channel that sales reps should be utilising today?
100%. It's always been the case. It is the phone. The phone has not gone anywhere. It is still the number one tool. And for everyone out there that says cold calling is dead, it absolutely isn't. And the other mindset shift is there's no such thing as a cold call. Every call is warm, because when you dial and a human being picks up the phone, they are breathing. Therefore, it's warm. So make a warm call today. Focus on getting better at making calls. The phone is the way to go.
And do you know Jack Frimston and Zach Thompson? We have a meeting.
Yeah.
They told me there's basically a stat, and it's like people have been saying cold calling's dead since like the 1920s, but it's been around thousands of years in like knocking on the doors, and then it was I don't know, meeting your mate at the fire pit and trying to sell him some meat or something. Like, it's been around for 100 years. It's not going anywhere. But they're going to be there later. We'll have a good chat, and it's been great to connect, and we'll record something later.
Look forward to it.
Amazing. We're back here at SaaStock Dublin, and it's not very often that I feel short. I'm not going to lie. I'm a 6'2" guy, just to give some context. Quick question: how tall are you?
I'm 6'6".
6'6". Very, very envious. Like I feel a bit, I don't know, lackluster, a bit underdressed. Your decision or someone else's?
Someone else's. Our events marketing manager, Meg.
Well, you should get some brownie points. She's at least bought you a drink. Come on. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I've asked how tall you are. I think you should introduce yourself. So I'll hand you the mic.
Perfect. So my name's Ben Jones. I'm a BDR at Jiminny. We're a conversation intelligence platform based in London. So yeah.
How long have you been there?
I've been there now. I've literally, this month was my 12-month anniversary there. So
good first year?
Yeah, it's been good. There's been a lot of ups and downs. It's been a bit of a roller coaster of a ride, but I think it has for everyone. So yeah, it's been good.
And we were just talking there about our event that we're hosting in the evening. This is not a plug. The reason though is because we have a guy called Jack Frimston and Zach Thompson from We Have a Meeting, and they're one of the people that you highly rate on LinkedIn. So I guess the question I was going to ask is, who would you recognise, or who would you recommend? Sorry, we just nearly had someone coming across there. Who would you recommend following on LinkedIn, and why? And you can drop Jack in there as well.
Yeah. So I think for definite Jack Frimston. I just love his no bullshit approach on LinkedIn. He's not afraid to call people out.
He talks about death a lot.
So it's quite funny. He used to talk about, he still does talk about death all the time, and it really confused me. So I commented once, I don't know whether it's a good thing, I don't really understand what you're trying to do. And I watched one of his videos explaining it, and it made perfect sense then why he talks about death all the time. But yeah, I think the main thing is he's not afraid to like challenge people's opinions on LinkedIn. If it's bullshit, he'll call them out, and I really like that. I think another person for me is Holly Allen from Deal. She's really good.
Yeah, we've had her on the podcast.
Yeah,
personal branding.
Personal branding, videos. I think video prospect at the moment is so big, and I think like her tips on LinkedIn are just really good. So I definitely recommend following her. So, yeah.
And I think Jack, for a bit of context, him talking about death, I think the point he tries to get across is there's much bigger things in life to worry about. Yeah. Like, everyone's going to die. You're not going to die on a cold call. You're not going to die when you're doing a discovery thing. Yeah. And that's why he talks about death, because it does sound kind of morbid. Yeah. So there's these little scooters going around everywhere, like suitcase scooters. I'm going to have to get a ride on one of those. But yeah, so Jack Frimston, Holly Allen, one more. Pick one more.
I'd say Tom Boston. Yeah, I think he's just fucking hilarious.
I'm trying to get him on the podcast,
Mate,
and I'm a bit offended. He will not come on the podcast with me. But
yeah, he's just hilarious. I just think, yeah, he's really good. Another one for personal branding and growing your LinkedIn audience, because obviously we all know how impactful having a good LinkedIn audience is. So,
have you seen Chris Van Praag here from? So he does content for Vidyard and Sales Feed. He's another one who does like really funny sales content. So he's actually filming some content. Yeah, so I definitely follow Chris Van Praag if you don't know. But yeah, look, thanks. We will see you later for the event. Get some pints down there, get some food. It's going to be a good night. But yeah, appreciate it. Cheers, dude. Cheers. So we are here at the G2 stand with Will, our first willing guest, victim of the show. They're also coming to podcast and pints later. But we're going to ask him a burning question. But I will let you introduce yourself first. So over to Will.
Hi, so I'm Will, relationship manager at G2 in EMEA. And yeah, really excited to be at SaaStock and excited for podcasts and pints later as well.
Free drinks goes down very, very well with sales reps. But the question that I wanted to ask you is something that all sales reps like being asked. What is your biggest success story so far this year? Give us all the juicy bits.
Okay. So this is one that I'm actually stoked about because it happened yesterday. But yesterday I hit my fiscal number. So good, like quarter ahead. So still a full quarter to keep selling and keep, adding on to the dollar and commission. So really happy about that. And that has kind of been visualized through doing things a little bit different last year, just focus on multi-year contracts, early renewals, which has just allowed me to get everything sorted well before I needed to.
You say your relationship, right? So you're sort of customer success?
So I'm on the commercial side of the account management team, so renewals, upsells, expansion, pretty much just driving the value and then getting them to be on larger packages and spending more with G2.
And who's your biggest account?
Oh, so I'm SMB, so I don't work with any like accounts specifically that are like big or household names, but I'm always like telling the David versus Goliath battle story, we're the little versus the big, and how you're differentiating yourself between them. And
top piece of advice for someone in your role, like off the back of this like success you've had over the fiscal.
Yeah.
Best piece of advice?
Don't be afraid to just be direct and ask questions. Win fast, lose fast. So qualify opportunities early on. Every 6-month renewal that I do, I ask the client, if your renewal was tomorrow, would you renew? If they say yes, I figure out what proposition will get them to sign within 30 days. And that's meant I'm renewing contracts 6 months early than I would have otherwise been doing. And then lean into multi-years as best you can. I lead with multi-year contracts. If you were my client, I'd put a 3-year deal in front of you and say, you can have a 3-year deal, but if you don't, you're going to be paying the year 3 price today. Yeah. Otherwise, we just shift all that incremental onto the 3rd year, so you're paying it forward in the future. And that's allowed me to 3x my baseline, and ultimately is the reason why I've hit so early.
Amazing. Well, have a good rest of the show. Good luck, and we will see you for podcast and pints later. Cheers.
Thanks, bud.
So we're here with Nick Butler from Jiminny at SaaStock. You may recognise him from a recent game of golf that we had, Selligence versus Jiminny. I'm not going to tell you what the score was, but Selligence lost, unfortunately. Nick doesn't have any pink on, whereas the rest of his crew do. So why is that, first of all?
You got to have to blame our events manager Meg for that.
So she didn't order you a pink item of clothing, is that what it was?
No, tell a lie, I just refused to wear it.
Right. But yeah, it would clash with the tan a bit, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would clash with the tan.
The cream, the tan.
Yeah. For those who don't recognise you, do you want to just introduce yourself and the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So Nick, I'm one of the enterprise account execs here at Jiminny. So been working here just over a year now. And it's been a great ride.
Amazing. And the question we're going to ask you today is probably a sales rep's favourite question. What has been your biggest success in the last few months, last year?
Biggest success, Jay, would have to be the biggest competitor takeover we've done in our history. So I was working with a company, I won't name them, big in the financial world, and it was an outbound meeting that we booked in December and managed to get it closed. So it was 125k ARR, worked with the head of revenue ops, went for an RFP, beat off all the competitors. So, and the fact that it was outbound shows the power of timing, nurturing a lead. And
you say you took that from one of your biggest competitors, right?
Yes,
Which is always nice.
Almost a household name these days. You might have heard of it.
Have you got a few more of those types of opportunities in the pipeline, as in poaching, let's say? Well, not poaching, it is sales, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. So I think that there's a lot of value that Jiminny can provide that I think some of the market haven't capitalised on. I think for us, it's always that human element around the technology, right? It's, okay, you're using maybe 20% of the software, 80% of the time it's, okay, let's make sure that the team are using at least 60% of the software 90% of the time. So that's where we want to get it, and a massive part of that is the customer experience.
And you were saying there that cold outbound still has a place in the modern sort of sales world. What would be like your single best tip for those who perhaps don't necessarily take to the cold outbound as well as maybe LinkedIn?
I think cold calling definitely isn't dead. I think the deal that we closed, the biggest deal we closed last quarter, was from Mike Richardson. Bit of a shout out there to one of our awesome SDRs, and that led to that deal, right? So you guys, Jiminny, we're in a fortunate position where we speak to sales leaders every day, so they're used to picking up the phone. Any sales leader should be open to a good cold call, hear you out. So biggest advice would be SDRs still get on the phone.
And look, cold calling isn't dead, it's just bad cold calling is dead, right?
Exactly.
And with everything, there's going to be really, really bad cold callers. But I think it's actually one of our most engaged topics on the podcast is cold calling. Any ads that we run, cold calling always splits the audience down the middle. But I think it's very industry specific. Like you said, we speak with salespeople, so they actually respond quite well to cold calls. If you're trying to cold call a marketer, I'm a marketer, I hate cold calls. But I think it's just industry specific. But we're going to be seeing you later for Podcasts and Pints. We've got some, I think, have you got any tickets you're handing out today? If not, I'll give you some now.
I don't.
Please. But yeah, we'll see you later and we'll have a few drinks.
Yeah, nice.
Cheers, mate.